one of the most exciting Thursday night games you're going to see this season. I'm with Alex Osimo Baker, aka the world's best fantasy player. Alex, what's happening?
Not much, man. It probably won't be a game that I'll watch. I mean, Jacksonville and Tennessee, not the most exciting matchup. I mean, I guess they could be Super Bowl contenders at this point for the next few weeks before they go in the hole, but probably not. So I'm excited to sweat my fantasy lineups instead of sweating these teams.
That is what fantasy was made for, nights like this, because otherwise this game is pretty unwatchable. With us as well is Ben Rasa, football expert, degenerate gambler, probably currently sweating a Papua New Guinea versus Tonga rugby friendly. Ben, what's happening?
It's funny you say that because the Rugby World Cup is going on. It starts, I think, tonight, actually, and Tonga's in it, but we don't need to talk about that. This is a bad game. I really like ugly football. I don't mind low over-unders, but this is even going to test me. I remember this Thursday night game from last year. It was ugly then, and it's still ugly now.
We can absolutely talk about rugby if you guys want. We'll do a live before lock Rugby World Cup show a little bit later on. So let's talk about this slate here, Alex. What were your first impressions when you saw the pricing come out and when you cranked out those projections there?
Yeah, honestly, like I did all the projections before looking at it, and then the questions started flooding in about the projections. Like, why is Corey Davis projected to actually be good? He's been terrible this year so far. Stuff like that. So this made me re-examine some things here. But I feel like I have a pretty good read on what's going to happen tonight. I mean, as good as you can get.
Oh, I like it. I can't wait to dig in here. Ben, what are you saying? What was your first impression?
Well, I mean, my first impression was this is going to be bad. I think a lot of people, and we're going to certainly get into it, when you see a game like this, your first thought is defense and kickers, I think. And when that happens, the product of that is you end up leaving a lot of money on the table, which we're going to talk about as well. And then you got to see, exactly where can the points come from because, both these teams are pretty deficient. They want to be methodical, and it could be one of those, 12-6 type games. It's certainly more likely than we normally say.
Yep. The kickers and defense. We're right up Alex's alley here. So let's. But before we get into some of these players, I just want to thank our sponsor, Fantasydraft, the only rake-free daily fantasy site, bringing the heat again with a $750,000 guaranteed free rake contest this week. It's the Hooters main event. This is the largest and only rake-free contest of its kind this week you will find for week 3. So sign on up. They have great packages that you can pay monthly, so you can avoid all those rakes from the bigger sites. And it's a great deal. So head on over, check out Fantasydraft. All right, let's dig into captain picks here. First off, Alex, what are your top captain options tonight? Where do you think the field is going with captain that they shouldn't be, and how are you generally approaching it?
So one captain pick I think that may be viable tonight that usually isn't is going defense at captain. I mean, the over-under is 38, so the probability is that there are going to be some points scored in this game. But, I mean, we got two quarterbacks who have been known to throw some picks. So Gardner Minshew, I suppose, hasn't been known to, but any rookie quarterback's going to throw a ton of picks. Those could easily turn into points, and these defenses are pretty strong. They're going to get sacks. And more importantly, I mean, the skilled players may not put up a ton of points themselves. But the counterpoint here is that defense is pretty unlikely to be a high score on a normal slate. And I think that people might try to get overly cute today and go with the Jags D or the Titans D, really play the matchup. But I'm expecting that to be a little bit too popular given the narratives that everyone's painting about this game and being a slugfest. So I think it's kind of an interesting play, but I might not end up on it a ton. What do you guys think about defense at captain?
Ben, I'll throw to you.
So I think it's one of those things. It's a balance because it's more interesting in a game like this, but I think the public overrates how optimal it even is in this spot. Because what I noticed with this slate, talking about the two sites, you have FanDuel, and when you play there, the MVP, it doesn't multiply the salary. So naturally, you're going to have one of the top guys, unless you're really trying to be different just on game theory. But with this slate, even on DraftKings, it's pretty hard to spend the cap, much harder than usual for a showdown. So what ends up happening, you get into situations where you can have the D as a captain, but you're really asking a lot because you're going to have salary to probably get one of the more productive, skill position players. So I kind of, even though it makes sense logically, I'm kind of shying away from that. I'm definitely using defenses, just not in the captain spot.
Now, we did see in week one, the Packers D, I believe, was in the captain spot in the optimal lineup. So it's not super crazy. I looked up a little bit about these defenses tonight. Kind of middle of the pack in both run defense and pass defense. It's pretty early, pretty tough to get too much of a sample size. The Titans' offensive line was predicted to be one of the better units this year. Adding Roger Saffold from the Rams, they've actually been one of the worst units. They have the second worst adjusted sack rate in the NFL this year, and it's pretty bad. Alex, do you have any interest in the Jacksonville side of the defense, or are you switching over to the Tennessee side?
Yeah, I have interest in both sides. I mean, this is about as close as games get in the NFL. The spread is -2, and the team total for both teams is just around 20. So I think that neither team is going to be particularly productive with the ball tonight on average. So that really puts both defenses in play. I think that the Titans' defense is a little bit more appealing from a logical perspective because Gardner Minshew, we don't really know what kind of player he's going to be. It's been good so far, but we'll see if he can continue his run and maintain his swagger after this week. I guess it's not.
A 77% completion percentage, 45 of 58, 3 touchdowns, and 111 passer rating thus far for Gardner Minshew. Now, let me just ask you one more question, Alex. When you're rostering those defenses in the captain spot, what do you do with the rest of your lineup? What's your lineup construction look like? You're probably getting away from things like putting 2 quarterbacks against those defenses, or do you?
So if I'm putting defense in the captain, I'm really hoping the game is low scoring and that I'm winning first place with like 60 points or something crazy low because no skill possession players do much of anything. In that situation, the quarterbacks tend to amass enough yards to be in the lineup, so I will have some quarterbacks versus defense. This lineup I'm looking at here, one of my top lineups, I have the Jaguars D at captain, I have the Titans D in the flex, and then I have both running backs and Marcus Mariota. So I guess it's pretty clear what I'm going for here, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to do that. It's one of these situations where it's just such a delicate balance because when you do that, I feel like if you take a defense in the captain spot, you're almost automatically punching in Fournette and Henry because you have all the salary. You can literally choose anyone you want. It's very hard to differentiate. Not saying it can't work, but you do want to be aware that when you choose defense up top, you're really in a really specific funnel type of position.
And that's a great point. In a lot of these larger contests, you're going to get a lot of duplication anyways. So if you're going defense at the top, that usually means you're gonna be duplicating your lineup somewhere probably because everyone who goes defense is going to probably pay out for a lot of these higher priced options as well. Let's talk about captain ownership versus your top projections, Alex. So we have 2 of the better values on the slate. It looks like Mariota is coming in at about 15% captain ownership. And we have him projected for about a 25% chance of becoming the top play on the slate. What are you doing with Mariota, knowing that he's going a little under-owned relative to his upside?
Yeah, I mean, anytime I have a quarterback in Showdown, I'm gonna like him a lot because it's easy to build lineups with the correlation that they have with the other players on the team. Right now in Draftkings, I have about 84% Marcus Mariota. I mean, I have him mixed in between the captain and the flex. I think that quarterbacks just have kind of a steady production. So one of the things I have on the site, you mentioned the top sacks tool. This is something I really think is a valuable tool for anyone, regardless of skill level, because what I'm doing here is I'm taking into account all of the correlations and coming up with the percentage chance that each player will be the highest score on the day. That's what you need in your captain. And the results today were really surprising. What I found was that even though Leonard Fournette and Derrick Henry have almost the same projection in my system, Derrick Henry has 4% higher chance to be the top play of the day. And the reason why is because Fournette is getting so much production in the pass game compared to Henry. So like that means a lot of times when Fournette has big fantasy totals, he'll accumulate it through the PPR. And when that happens, there's a pretty good chance that Gardner Minshew will be the top scoring player of the day. Whereas Henry, he kind of does it himself. He doesn't get too much work in the passing game. So that's one opportunity that you can exploit is right now, Derrick Henry, we have projected to be 14% owned and captain, but I have him at a 22% chance of being the top play. So I think that you can use this tool to really find the inefficiencies in the ownership.
Now, Ben, if you're going with Mariota as your captain, who are you pairing him up with? Which of these Tennessee Titans wide receivers are you getting to the most?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, that's one of your many problems on this slate because you plug in Mariota and you're like, great. Alex just described it perfectly. Henry's kind of an alpha. He's on his own, really. He does his own thing. So if Mariota is going to excel, you know that either A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, Delaney certainly is in play. Then you've got the Tajee Sharps of the world that are kind of in the background. Now, Corey Davis has just been god-awful. Having said that, though, he's still someone that has, he's out there. He has a prominent role on this team. It's just the team that wants to control on the ground. So I think you're kind of forced into picking, to me, I'm going to probably roll with A.J. Brown more often than not. Just think the upside, is a young guy from Ole Miss, plenty of talent. But, the Titans passing attack is really hard to peg because you see it. They don't want Mariota throwing a ton. They want him to be efficient. Don't turn the ball over and let Derrick Henry punch it in when they get close.
Ben, how dare you forget to mention Adam Humphries?
Adam Humphries. Sure, why not? Just give me Jonnu Smith, too. Just put him up in there, and let's just get crazy. I mean, it's such a difficult team to peg production, through the passing attack, and it makes it tough. I do think that Henry, he makes a fine captain, certainly, because he's very polarizing. He's going to do all the work himself, but I will say, on the flip side of that, I feel more comfortable completely omitting him from my lineup than Fournette because I do think the floor is, if he doesn't score a touchdown, he could bust way harder. Fournette is going to catch more balls, naturally a little higher floor.
Fournette involved had a 97% snap count last week. So Ben, do you ever target these outside Jacksonville Jaguars corners? We have Tajee Sharp generally running the most routes outside, as well as A.J. Brown. Or are you more likely to go and target the middle of the field with the Delaney Walker types, the Adam Humphries? Even Corey Davis is splitting his snaps in the slot right now. Are you more likely to target those slot players, or are you taking your chances with A.J. Bouye and Jalen Ramsey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm stunned that's a whole different pot. I'm stunned that they're playing Jalen Ramsey. I don't know why they would do that at this point, but looks like they are. Tough matchup for the outside. Like I said, A.J. Brown I still think has some upside. But, Delaney, I get it. The problem with him is you're probably going to need him to fall in the end zone, which he can do. He's just not going to be breaking. He might catch a couple balls. I just don't know how many yards he's going to accumulate. So it's a tough ask. I think, honestly, if you're using Mariota in the captain spot, I think your best out is that he runs one and he is somewhat mobile. And that's a huge, that's 9 points in the captain spot. You really need that to probably get there.
Absolutely. Alex, what are you thinking Mariota-wise? You load him up in the captain spot. Is there anyone you're not pairing him with? Would you not pair him with Derrick Henry because of his lack of work in the passing game? And which of these wide receivers are your favorite?
I wouldn't go out of my way to pair him with Henry, but I'm not going to avoid it. I'm just hoping in that instance Tennessee just has a big game and everyone gets theirs. One strategy I do like is stacking up one team with 5 guys from the team and 1 guy from the other team. So I'll have a lot of lineups where I have Mariota, Henry. One guy I'm not really on is Delaney Walker. He is someone that he hasn't played as many snaps as it looks like from his production. He only played 46 of the 70 Titans passing plays over the first 2 weeks. And he only played half of the snaps overall, so I'm expecting he's a little bit overpriced today based on his production in weeks 1 and 2. I'm expecting that to tail off because it's just simply not possible to be a great fantasy player if you're only on the field for half the snaps. On the other hand, Corey Davis has been on the field for the most passing snaps, so at 56 out of 70. So while he hasn't produced yet, I'm super high on him relative to his salary because if you look at last year, he got 112 targets. He's going to have games where he doesn't get targeted a lot, but I expect him to, over the course of the season, have some games where he gets 10 plus targets.
Nice. All right, we'll throw in some Corey Davis in our lineups here. Let's finish off the Titans running backs here. We talked a little bit about Derrick Henry. Do you guys have any? Ben, I'll start with you. Any love for Dion Lewis?
He's. I will say he's on the field also kind of a little more than I realized. He is getting some work. Problem with him, I think you really need that positive game script in the sense that the Jags get up and they start going to him in that passing game because Henry is someone that they're extremely comfortable just giving the lion's share of the carries. Goal line work we know is going to be his. So where is your out? That's what I try to think of when I pick lower end players is where, if I get it all right, how do I get there? With Dion Lewis, I think he catches a bunch of balls. He turns into the James White style type of guy. And that's how you can get there on a site like DraftKings with the full PPR. So I'm not looking to go to him, but he's certainly one of the Titans that you could pair up. If I used him, Mariota almost certainly would be in that lineup.
Now, Alex, would you avoid having both Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry in the same lineup? Do you avoid some of these like mutually exclusive plays where sometimes these guys aren't on the field at the same time? If one goes off, the other's not going off. Is that like an anti-correlation thing, or do you not even worry about it and realize that if you have Henry and Lewis in the same lineup, a lot of people aren't going to have that lineup?
Actually, I have a lot of lineups with Henry and Lewis. Lewis is a sneaky pick because he hasn't produced over the first two games. What I'm hoping for when I have Lewis and Henry in the same lineup is that the Titans just run it 30 plus times. In that instance, I think Derrick Henry will probably get like 20 of them and Lewis will get like 10. And I think especially if the game is a blowout that Lewis will start getting more runs. I mean, if they're behind, you can get more passing routes too. So I think he's a decent player in any sort of lineup. Definitely a contrarian play, but someone that I think has the potential. And I think he's going to be pretty unpopular based on his performance so far this year.
I think you might be right there. I'm regretting that I feel like I don't have enough Dion Lewis in my lineups here, so I'm a little bit scared. But let's move over to the Jacksonville side of the ball. We talked a little bit about Gardner Minshew. He looked like the second coming of Tom Brady when he came in the other day for Nick Foles. Very accurate thus far. Ben, are you buying the hype for G Minshew?
Yeah, he's got some swag. This is a guy, for people who watch college football, went to East Carolina, grad transfer to Washington State, phenomenal there. Didn't even know he was in the league, and boom, hit the ground running. There's something to it. He's got some moxie, but at the same time, there's a difference between being thrown in against the Chiefs and prevent defense. These teams are going to be planning for him. He's holding his own, but I don't think he's going to be dominant. But he is another guy, I will say. He's got some mobility, and that really helps in games like this. Similar to Mariota, he can get you 20, 30 cheap yards, and that's a couple points. It's huge. So I don't mind him. Again, salary is, the money is so cheap tonight. You can plug in these type of guys even on raw points and not need that much to be in the optimal.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, it's all about those raw points. Alex, did you get much Gardner Minshew in your lineups tonight?
I think that he's certainly a core play. I mean, a guy who the hype I think exceeds the expectation for me. There's just been so many people talking about him and his energy, his look, and
outfit.
Yeah, the outfit. He's kind of got like the 70s, like I don't even know how to describe it, but you've all seen it, so I don't even need to.
Flawless.
Yeah. I think the hype is just too high. Like he's a new shiny toy that people want to put in their lineups, and I'm not that excited about it for that reason. But then again, it is Showdown, and we only have guys from tonight's game, so quarterbacks are generally the most productive position. So he's up there in the top 5 guys that I have projected tonight.
We have him projected between captain and the utility spots for about 50% ownership, 58% ownership, somewhere in there. So I can't read 50%.
Yeah.
If you got some Gardner Minshew, who do you load him up here? You know, a little DJ Chark, Alex, a little Dede Westbrook. Who's your go-to Jacksonville wide receiver?
Man, that's a tough one because Chark is over. He's priced up because he had that big game in Week 1. Dede Westbrook. Also, I don't think I have him alive because, let's see, I have 8%, which is a minuscule amount for Showdown. He's just someone, he hasn't really produced yet, but his salary of $7,400, that is really a lead wide receiver kind of salary, and he doesn't really stand out. The guy who I actually pair with Minshew the most is Fournette. He's been getting a ton of looks in the passing game, and he's one of the leading receivers projected for Jacksonville, and he's certainly the biggest fantasy producer of them all, so he's the easiest to go ahead and pair with Minshew, in my opinion.
That's a great point. Leonard Fournette actually second on the team in targets with 12 behind DJ Chark. So that's a sneaky move. People often don't like to pair up their quarterback with their running back, but there's as good a chance as any that Leonard Fournette's going to be on the receiving end of one of these touchdown passes, if they have any touchdown passes. Ben, what about you? Do you have any thoughts on this Jags receiving core?
It's difficult, and Marquise Lee is active, just to add another body in there. Fournette, yeah, I think is clear on a Showdown. Thursday, Monday, that's a totally different story. But, he's going to catch balls, and it makes sense. We all talked about, this is a rookie quarterback. One of the easiest ways to get him in the game is checkdowns, easy completions. Fournette is that guy. TJ Yeldon clearly not there anymore, so he's taking a ton of that work. So I absolutely would prefer him. If I had to pick an actual wide receiver, I think it would be Dede Westbrook, just because I was so high on him coming into the year. This Shark guy, feels even more overvalued than Dede. They all do, kind of, though. Marquise Lee would be the true dark horse, but I'm not sure I'm ready to go to him based off nothing.
Yeah, so Marquise Lee, 12 snaps last week. I think he was active there. So still nursing his way back, was possibly expected to hit the pup. Pretty sneaky play in GPPs. Alex, you getting any Marquise Lee?
Man, I hate that I didn't, because I was super high on this guy going into the season. Sat out the whole 2018 season with injury. But in 2017, he was really productive, and he was kind of a target monster when he was on the field. I think he got injured during the game in one of the games, and because of that, he hasn't really seen any action. But if he's active, and we don't really know what that means. I don't think it means that he's going to get all the passing snaps, but I don't really feel confident about that, so he could easily break the slate.
Marquise Lee breaking the slate. I like it. It's interesting. It's Ben, did you have something there?
No, I just want to say, it's interesting because what I like about him actually is that he's, sometimes when we talk about these type of guys, they're like $800. He's actually priced up with the other receivers, but on this slate, you can afford it. So it may deter ownership, and that's what you really want with a guy like him. You're hoping that nobody plays him. If he gets a 0, it doesn't matter if he's $800 or $6,000. You're in big trouble. So you kind of want the increased salary. And I actually think it adds to his appeal in large field tournaments.
All right, I like it. My guy, I'm sticking with DJ Chark.
Okay.
Spark standout, 4th in the receiving class in 2018. I like these big physical receivers. He's going to have probably a height advantage over whoever he lines up with, whether that's Adoree Jackson or Malcolm Butler. You got Logan Ryan in the slot there. Has been one of the worst slot corners this season so far. So I don't mind that Dede Westbrook take as well there, Ben. Let's move on to the Jaguars running game here. We have Leonard Fournette, who's just getting an insane snap rate, but unfortunately these game scripts are not helping him score fantasy points. As well, the Jags' offensive line hasn't been great so far. Where do you stand on Leonard Fournette, Alex?
I'm pretty high on him. He was one of the guys I had ranked super high at the start of the season. We've never seen him have a good season because he's been injured so much, but he has been getting a huge workload like the past couple weeks, as you said. I do expect that at some point Tyler Ervin is going to come in and get some third downs. He hasn't thus far, but that's really why they have him on the team. Michael Armstead, if the game's a blowout, might get some runs, but I think Fournette's a pretty safe bet here.
Ben, any Leonard Fournette thoughts?
Yeah, of all the expensive guys, he's the one I feel most confident in that really doesn't bust. Then again, McCaffrey, if he can have a bad game, anyone can, but I feel pretty good that Fournette is going to get it done one way or another. It might be a low-scoring environment across the board, but then that just means that him getting you like 14 could be good enough. So I'm rolling with him on the majority of my lineups. He's my favorite captain. He's going to be extremely popular, so I got to be aware that when I use him there, got to be different with those other 5 flex spots.
I'm in the same boat as you, Ben. I'm getting to about 75% Fournette. Is that not enough? I don't know.
There's never enough Fournette, man.
I know. I feel you. I'm all about him in season long, Alex. That was your advice, so I'm all for a big game tonight. What about these Jags tight ends? Any interest at all, Alex? We're seeing O'Shaughnessy take over from Swaim a little bit, but this is still a fairly even snap count. Any thoughts on those two or any sneaky tight end plays?
I have a couple dart throws on Swaim and O'Shaughnessy. Both have been on the field about half the passing plays, and they get targeted a decent amount, so why not? But not core plays by any means. I think those are the only 2 tight ends I have actually projected to play. I guess Seth DeValve, I have him in for a couple snaps, but that would be just lighting your money on fire.
It's pretty ugly. Ben, any love for these Jags tight ends?
Not really. I'm in the same boat. It's hard to really say, jam one of them. The problem I have with situations like this, the chances that a Jag tight end is relevant is somewhat low. Then you got to get the right one. It's not just Jags tight end. There's 2 of them. So that makes it even more difficult. That just seems like a parlay style. That's situations I try to avoid.
That's why they invented the 150 max, Ben.
That's true. Isn't that the truth? But, in a tricky spot, one I'm mostly avoiding.
I forgot to mention the inactives tonight. It doesn't look like there's anything crazy. We have a Zigbo out running back for the Jags, as well as Josh Oliver. They're like 4th string tight end. No one really of note on the Tennessee Titans side. So just in case you were worried Jalen Ramsey might be out, he is not. Let's move on to the most exciting portion of the show. The kickers for Josh Lambo, Kairos Santos. What's your kicker exposure looking like tonight, Alex?
The crazy thing, usually kickers are like a core of my lineups. They have been ever since I had a takedown where I had double kicker. It was like a Patriots-Kansas City game, and my kickers went out and got me 20 points each or something crazy. Some people keep telling me kickers don't have upside, though. It's funny. But in this instance, I don't end up with a lot of the kickers. The main reason is because defenses are projected to do very well, and they're kind of your other option for some salary relief. And I think both kickers, I saw their props are about 1.5 field goals. So, and one misconception people have is that, you want your kickers to be getting those extra points, so you really want the offense to do well if you have the kicker. So I'm not really high on the kickers today.
Do you ever pair 2 kickers together in the same, like outside of that lineup? Sorry, I heard you say you won there. So, but do you ever is that a move that you'll make normally to pair 2 kickers together, or is that just a one-off?
So usually kickers are priced way down on Draftkings and Fanduel, and that's why I end up with so darn much of them. If you I'm a top stacks tool. My finding has been the kickers. They excel in being one of the top 6 scorers on the slate relative to their salary, but they have a very, very minuscule chance of being the top scorer on the slate. So that means that they make really nice flex plays, and you don't have to worry about them going out and killing it, and then they get too high a score and you don't have them in the captain and you lose.
Makes sense to me. Ben, what about you? All the Kairos Santos?
This is, I guess, I don't know how aggressive it is, but I guess if I'm making somewhat of a stand, I have basically no kickers in my lineups in a game where I think most people, and I get it, it's going to be low scoring. They think kickers part of it, it's raining. It's supposed to be a little windy. How much that's going to affect it, I don't know. But, again, I just spoke about the tight ends where it's like trying to get something right twice. Well, for kickers, you got to get your opportunities. Then you have to make the kicks. So with the harder weather, I'm willing to roll the dice that maybe, a couple misses. Maybe they don't get the opportunities. Alex mentioned in cash and things, they have a high floor, but, not something I'd look to in a captain spot. I just don't think the upside's there, even in a low scoring environment.
Plus, you got Adam Humphries at the same price, so you might
There
as
you
well
go.
just fire him up.
Well said.
All right, Alex? Give me your sneaky low-owned dart throw for large GPPs that you think no one's going to be on that you might include in a couple lineups tonight.
Well, one that I tweeted out from the Awesemo NFL handle. Make sure you're following it. I didn't actually end up with this guy because on Fantasy Cruncher, I had the settings set that exclude players under 3 projection on by accident. So he didn't actually turn up in my crunches because I had him as a projection of 2. This guy is Michael Pruitt for Tennessee. He's 200. He has been on the field about half the time for the Titans, and he hasn't caught a pass yet this year, and that means people are probably going to see that 0 average points per game and think he doesn't even play at all, but he does, and maybe he'll be the guy that gets the touchdown.
Michael Pruitt, a total of 21 receptions. I believe he's 35 years old and has been in the league for since 2000. Now, that's a pretty good dart throw. You're basically just hoping for a little red zone action there, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you never know what tight end's going to come up in the red zone because they're like the tall guys, go out there and be big targets. And Michael could be that guy tonight.
Ben, what about you?
It's a slate where I don't know how much I even want to do this, but when I did, in certain builds, if I really took the top end guys and I needed a cheapie, it would be Tajay Sharp for me. I'm a UMass guy, so I got to go with my alumni. Just the Titans wide receivers, I don't think the hierarchy is that, concrete. So it's someone that he should get some looks, and, he's got the speed where if he could get in space, he really, one catch could do it. Not saying that's going to happen. It's probably not going to happen. But at the same time, I do like knowing that the guy's got some upside if he gets in the right situation.
That's my take too, Ben. One of the better bargains on the slate, I think, tonight. Is he just $800 on DraftKings or something? Yeah, he's getting a lot of snaps for that price.
He is. Now, again, what you're talking about being behind, certainly Delaney Walker and a couple of the other pass catchers on a team that wants to hand the ball off. So that's the problem. But you know what? At the same time, he's on the field more than you would think for a guy at that price. And it only takes, this is Showdown. It only takes one fluke play to get in the optimal.
Alex, any Tajay for you tonight?
Let me check.
Sharp, man.
I have 1%.
All right. So you're telling me there's a chance. There you go.
I'm at 9. I might be the Tajay Sharp guy tonight. We'll see.
Man.
Alex, tell us a little bit about what's going on the site. What's new? What's happening with NFL stuff? What people get if they sign up for one of our packages, our new packages? Fill us all in.
So I'm pretty stoked about NFL this year. The new thing we have, I know a lot of people, they just like to make a few lineups and call it a day. For that kind of crowd, it's kind of just hard to justify paying $40 or more. I mean, one site I saw charges like $90 a month for NFL. So we're coming in at a low price point, $4 a week. And what you get is you get our lineup builder. It will tell you how well your lineups rate out as far as being contrarian and as far as your projection versus the field. So it'll tell you based on percentile how your lineup will fare. So that's a good source of feedback for you when you're hand building your lineups. And also you get the rankings I put out and ownership rankings. And then of course, I honestly think that if you don't have our full package, you're at a big disadvantage to everyone else because we have the best ownership projections in the industry. If you really want to be a big winner in DFS, you need to know who everyone's on. And then you have my projections. These are the ones I've used to make a ton of money in the past. And I work really hard on making sure they're accurate so I don't blow my money every week. And I really think that these are good investments of your money. And of course, you can use the promo code for the show, Live Before Lock. That will be half off your first payment of like a weekly or a monthly package.
Nice. Live Before Lock. We also have a really active Slack community in there. It's great if your NHL is just 2 weeks away. I don't know if there are any NHL fans watching right now, but our NHL Slack chat is just mind-blowingly good. We got so many great subs in there, just sharing all the last-minute information. But that's true with any of the sports, including NBA. So that's also one of those other helpful tools that that goes under noticed and appreciated. And it's part of just having that community of fantasy players all in the same spot, helping each other out. So yeah, sign up now, use that promo code, and come on board and say hi in Slack. Speaking of your industry-leading ownership projections, there, Alex, who do you think is the most over-owned player tonight, and what will you do relative to that? Let's say there's a player going over-owned. Do you come in way underweight? Do you come in a little underweight? Do you go full fade? What is your approach to someone that you feel is going over-owned?
So I actually wrote an article about this today that I'm working on. I have two thoughts here. Like, first of all, this is Showdown, so the high-owned guys like Fournette, Mariota, Henry, Minshew, like these are staples of your lineup in Showdown. So I'm not really fading them. One guy I am off of is Delaney Walker for the reasons I mentioned. I still have him though. I have him 8% compared to about 35% for the field. I kind of laid out my case for that earlier. Just he's not on the field enough to be a top performer. But there is an advantage sometimes to picking these guys because if you want to play against the worst players in the tournament, essentially, like, suppose that there's a player that is a worse than average pick and they're high owned, and all the bad players are going to have them because of the hype. Well, a certain amount of time, these guys are going to go off, and you want to be able to have a lineup that stands a chance versus that percentage of the field. So there is kind of some interesting strategy, maybe like varying your lineups up so you're covering a lot of different possibilities. So Delaney Walker could be an example tonight for me where like I have a few shares, just my very best lineups with Delaney Walker, but on the whole, I'm not super high on him.
Makes sense. Ben, what about you?
For me, it's the kickers. I'm way under on them, and you know what? And like Alex talked about, it depends on how many lineups you make. But no matter how many you make, unless it's one, of course, you can take nuanced positions. You know, there's a situation where you can come in underweight and still own a guy. So if that guy goes off, you're in trouble, but you still have some outs, and vice versa. If he, crashes and burns, you're sacrificing, say, 8% of your lineups, but the field is down 1/3 of the field, and you're getting really good leverage there. For me, like I said, I'm willing to risk that for maybe the weather, maybe just the game script, that I can get away with these kickers not being in the optimal. I think that'll cut out a large percentage of the field in a game like this, and I kind of built around that. So if I can survive that, I have that much more of a chance to hit the magic bullet.
All right, I like it. Alex, any last-minute lineup advice? We got about 10 minutes to lock. Give the viewers out there a little bit of last-minute help with their lineups.
So one thing, we were talking the Thursday to Monday slate, maybe fading the Thursday game, and actually like a trend I've noticed is that like every one of these contests I play, like all the pros like don't set any players from Thursday. It's not because like there aren't good players from these games. It's because they're like too lazy to do their lineups on Thursday. They want to wait till Sunday where they have all the news, and they don't want to lock in a guy and then have to edit every lineup with a locked player. And so I think that playing guys on the Thursday game may be the new fading guys on the Thursday game because because so many like sharp people aren't playing the Thursday game. If you nail a player or two in the Thursday game, you're going to be competing against those guys who just like locked in everyone on Thursday. And if you're editing your lineup and taking into account the latest news, you could have a big edge that way.
So before we got on here, we were talking about these Thursday to Monday slates and how they used to be. I think the Millie was a Thursday to Monday slate back in the day, wasn't it?
Oh God,
that sounds awesome.
That's a miserable thought.
No way,
There were
Swamp.
big tournaments, and I don't know if you guys remember, but FanDuel used to always have their ownership out, and you could lock it so you'd see what the
Yep.
ownership was on Thursday. Yeah, but the move back then was to fade the Thursday game because everyone was sitting down watching it. We didn't have Showdown, so you faded it, and then you waited to see if anything happened because people were always so much overweight on the Thursday game because they wanted to watch their players play well. So Alex, you're saying the new move is to play the Thursday night game. So double stack both these teams in your Monday to Thursday lineups, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And taking that to the bank.
Yeah, get your screenshots out tomorrow when you're in first and you've got no players remaining. But I will say, for Thursday, Monday, I think that what we're specifically talking about is really dependent on your stakes. Like, tonight there's I think 100-man Wildcat. It's mostly, sharp people. And I think what Alex is saying, you probably won't find anybody setting a lineup. In some of the smaller dollar where there's like a lot of people, you're going to have a ton of people who just stack the Thursday game because they want to be in first. I don't know why you would do that. You could take
it
advantage.
happens.
I think
it
that.
happens.
It happens.
And you're just drawing dead. Like there are hundreds of people that just want to see their name at the top of that leaderboard, and they're just like
dead.
all the Gardner Minshew.
You gotta do it for the tweet. I mean, like you tweet out that screenshot, currently winning like 40K because you got Gardner Minshew and no one else does. I mean, that's the life.
It's the same as golf. You just take all those guys teeing off first, right, Ben?
Yeah, it's the story of my life, right? But yeah, it's you want to be just like any contest you play in. You want to have have the best idea of what everyone else is thinking and doing. Once you figure that out, you can plan accordingly. Because if I'm the only person with if I knew Fournette was going to be 0% owned, I would certainly play him at 1% in 100-man tonight. I think that'd be fantastic. And vice versa, even if I love the spot, if everyone was locking guys in Thursday, I would sit back and hopefully be that much more of an advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And one final note on this before we wrap things up, I feel like a lot of times people will forget just to set their line, or they enter the Thursday contest, and by the time Sunday rolls around, they're either drawing dead or whatever. They've forgotten about that lineup. I swear you get a lot more free passes from people who just forget about it. I know I've done it before, so we've all been there. All right, let's wrap things up. We got just a few more minutes before the slate opens. Anything I missed? Any last minute tips, advice, Alex, for the crowd out there?
We talked about this a lot last week and not as much this week, but building your lineup with a narrative in mind. So if you have Minshew, take a receiver with him. If you have him in the captain, take two. Stuff like that. You want to use some general rules of thumb. Fantasy Cruncher can help you automate that a lot.
Yep, I use the group tool for that today. It's a great function. So you can set all your receivers on Fantasy Cruncher. Say take two of these receivers and pair them with your captain, and that's it. Click the button and generate those lineups.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like after I said this, and Adam pointed out to me that the winner of 250K had Godwin, and he didn't have Jameis. One of my rules of thumb was if you have the captain and the wide receiver, if you have captain wide receiver, you need the quarterback, but it doesn't work every time, unfortunately.
It happens. I think someone won the Super Bowl or something last year with Brady or Edelman and no Brady or something. So it happens. Ben, any last minute tips?
No, I mean, again, it's Showdown. You have to treat this differently than how you build main lineups. It's just a totally different mindset. So the more you do it, the more, what I like to make sure I do after the lineup locks, I really suggest try to dig in whether you have a tool to do it, which we have, certainly some things to help out on the site, or if you want to just pull the CSV, try to get some indications of what people are doing, and don't just look at the winning lineup and then be like, oh, I should have done that. Get a feel, you're going to see crazy things happen. Try to get a feel of what works, what doesn't, and then you're that much better off because it's only week 3. We have a lot of these Thursday games coming up.
A lot of ground to cover. Oh, and this is going to be the worst of the bunch. So let's get it over with now. All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We've got lots of stuff coming up at Awesemo.com. We have the NFL Strategy Show at 11 Eastern every 6 days a week. We have On the Contrary on Saturdays, 2 p.m. Eastern. Special guest Mike Teglieri is going to join Chris Spags and Alex Awesemo Baker. We have the gambling show, the betting show with me and Ben tomorrow,
Yes,
as well as
sir.
Jordan Frank. And Alex, we're going to sit down and talk Yahoo tomorrow as well. Build some lineups for that $1 million baller. So lots of stuff going on. Make sure to check back. And thanks for tuning in. The three of us will be back next Thursday for a hopefully offensive matchup on Thursday Night Football.